Hello, welcome to my channel. So, after a string of books that I gave low rating to, by low rating I mean 3 stars or less, right? I finally found a book that I could give 5 stars to, and it is this, Cyprian Ekwensi's Jagua. So this book was published in 1961. Cyprian Ekwensi was a Nigerian author, and when I was book shopping at the time, I noticed this book and I was really intrigued by it. I had this kind of vibe that I might like it, and turned out that vibe was true. I did end up liking it. I thought that the writing was so good, the story was so good. So I'm just gonna say it right here. I'm gonna recommend this book in advance. Yeah. So this book is about Jagua, who is a woman. She works as a sex worker in Lagos. Now this book is set in 1950s Nigeria. And at the beginning of this book, when we are introduced to Jagua, we learn that she is living with her boyfriend, who is like half her age. The boyfriend's name is Freddie, and yeah, she lives with her boyfriend, and they sort of have this kind of very interesting dynamics with each other. Like their relationship, to Freddie, she is his mistress. He's also aware of her job as a sex worker. Meanwhile, to her, Freddie sort of represents something that's going to be very important to this book. Now, I'm not sure if I want to tell you what that something is, but I think, you know what, I'm not gonna tell you that. I don't think it's spoilery, but on a different plane, it could count as spoilery if you're looking for stuff like themes and stuff like that, right? But anyway, let's just say that their living arrangement and their relationship isn't really something that you would call a conventional relationship between lovers. There is this kind of expectation from two parties. So yeah. And when we are introduced to Jagua, we are also introduced to her personality. She is brash. She is shown to be someone who knows what she wants. She can be a little bit callous with her own life. Like, she is already a sex worker, and so her occupation, this occupation sort of implies that she's not particularly well protected when it comes to her individual as as a laborer, right? And there is some kind of volatility, there is some kind of lack of safety in her life, and but yeah, she's shown to be someone who loves to party, who loves nice things, fairly hedonistic, who loves living, living the nice life and spending money and all that stuff, right? So that is the Jagua that we are introduced to at the beginning of this novel. And we would eventually learn about how her life would develop. Her relationship with her, boy toy at the beginning of this book, that is not going to be like the main thing that is that is going to get carried over all the way to the end of this book. A lot of changes are going to happen in Jagua life, and we are going to see her moving from place to place due to certain changes in circumstances, or due to her own motivated by her own drive to do something for herself. Now, this book, when you learn that it has this female sex worker as the protagonist, you can't help but to feel like there is going to be a little bit of feminist element to it. And I would say that is, to a certain extent, is definitely true. But what I find really fascinating is that this book ultimately, in my opinion, it talks a lot about class struggles. It talks a lot about poverty versus prosperity. And especially considering the fact that this book is set in a bustling city such as, like Lagos, for example. Not only Jagua is the character present that is used to sort of carry this message about class struggles, we also have other characters like Jagua boyfriend, Freddie, who is someone aspiring to study hard so that he can study abroad and become a lawyer. So that's pretty much his goal, and the reason for that is because he wants to secure a better life for himself. And we also have other characters who engages themselves in various activities. Some of them engages in crime, others engage in sex work, just like Jagua, and some of them does politics, right? So many different kinds of characters. They're doing various things in this book in order to sort of secure that capability financially, that capability to live. And because the novel kind of hinges on that, in a way, I'm not really feeling a lot of judgment from this book. This book is not particularly, I wouldn't even say not particularly, I don't even think that this book is didactic, especially when it comes to the main character, which is a plus in my book. And if you like that sort of thing, it is not a book that is judgmental about what Jagua does in her life, the fact that she's a sex worker, because it mostly focuses on her and other characters' drive to better their own lives. Whether the way that they do that is correct or not, it sort of reserves that judgment, and I like that. And also, back to how this book sort of feels feminist. It's not a full-blown feminist book, I would say, but it also features some element of intersectionality, with its main meat of talking about class struggles. It explores the intersectionality with, especially since it uses a female sex worker as a protagonist. It illustrates the intersectionality between class and one's existence as a woman, with one's existence as a sex worker, one's existence as someone who come from a small town, for example. This the protagonist comes from a small town, as someone who doesn't have privilege, right? And I find that those themes are really well explored in this book. They are explored in such a way that they are woven really nicely into the plot of the story, and it doesn't feel like it's trying to make a point, but rather it's trying to tell a story. Now, onto the story itself, I find that the story is quite dynamic. The protagonist itself, she is dynamic because, as I mentioned earlier, she keeps on changing places in the book. She goes from one place to another, and it's sort of like we're reading some kind of adventure novel, even though it's not really like an adventure. It's not really an adventure novel, but it feels like we're reading some kind of adventure by the character. And so a lot of things in this book keeps on changing. One, at the beginning, Jagua is with her young boyfriend in Lagos, and then after that she goes to a small town because of certain things related to like the young boyfriend, and after that she returns to Lagos, and after that she goes to somewhere else. There are a lot of changes. And the character herself, she does not feel like a flat character. One of her hallmark is the fact that she tends to do a lot of bad decisions. Like, bad judgment is her shtick. But the way that this novel writes her, it makes you feel like you want to root for her, but at the same time, every time she does something bad, you would sigh. But you want to root for her, right? So she's this really well-written, flawed heroine, I would say, flawed protagonist, and I think it's really good. So yeah, that's the story, and because of that, because of all the changes that this story shows you, it feels refreshing, right? It's gripping, and it feels nice to see a character who has a lot of agency given the limitation that she has on herself, imposed on her by the society that she lives in at the time. So yeah, that is the story. Now, as for the writing itself, one of the things I really like about the writing is that it writes the dialogues in accents. It writes the accents, Nigerian accents. I'm not sure if that's how you call it, Nigerian accent, or maybe there's a more specific name to it. So that most of the dialogues are written in accents, and it's just really fun because that, my personal taste, I really love reading accents. It gives the book better flavor. It feels more immersive, and that definitely helps. The accents in the dialogue really helps in making me feel immersive in the story. And another thing I noticed is that once in a while you have characters speaking in this so-called, as the book calls it, grammatical English, which is unaccented English, basically. But most of the dialogues are in accents, and those grammatical English dialogues are either shown sparingly, or sometimes they're not shown at all. Usually the book will just tell, like, these two characters, they speak in grammatical English. So I think it's kind of interesting that we have, dialogues written in, accents and dialects at the foreground, very obvious for you to see, and then the so-called grammatical English, proper English dialogues are just kind of hidden in the background, or not even shown at all, right? So I find it really interesting. So what do you think about that? Because I feel like, I don't know, there's this, it really sets the tone of this book. It makes it feel, unique in the sense that if you compare it with a lot of the books around the world, right? There's this feeling of pride in the writing, and it really accentuates Jagua Nana's personality as well, because one of the things established in the book is that she would talk in dialects when she talks in English. There's pidgin English, as she calls it. And she doesn't really talk in grammatical English. So that is like an established fact in this book. And, that version of English happens to be like featured a lot as well. So I love that. I really love that. I think so far those are the main things I want to talk about this book and why I really love this book. And I'm so glad I found a 5-star. I really wish I could have like 5 stars after 5 stars, but yeah, this really motivated me to read again. Anyway, let me know if you have read this book, or if you have read his other novels as well, Cyprian Ekwensi's novels, or if you know any other novels that have the same vibe, or if you have any other thoughts, and I'll see you in a different video. So until then, take care. Thanks for watching and bye.